You know, sometimes the best gaming experiences don't come from those big, flashy AAA titles. With that being said, today I'm diving into 15 AA games that in many ways feel even better than their big budget counterparts. These games might not have massive marketing campaigns, but trust me, they deliver where it matters. Let's kick things off. I have to admit, A Plague Tale: Requiem really hit me hard emotionally. Following Amisha and Hugo's journey through this dark, plague-infested world was unforgettable. The storytelling is so grounded and personal that it felt like I was walking beside them every step of the way. What really amazed me, though, were the visuals. The way the world is brought to life, with its desolate landscapes and swarms of rats, is just stunning for a game of this scale. Combat and stealth felt tight and rewarding too, making every encounter nerve-wracking. But I won't sugarcoat it. The game's pacing drags a bit in the middle, especially when you're solving similar puzzles repeatedly. Still, it's a small price to pay for an emotional story like this.
Bastards! You had to come back! Oh, now this is what you get! Come on, move!
Evil West really surprised me with how fun it is. I mean, who doesn't love a cowboy wielding electricity to take down hordes of vampires? It's campy, sure, but in the best way possible. The combat feels chunky and satisfying, like every punch and shot carries weight. What I loved most were the boss fights. Each one pushed me to adapt and strategize without feeling overly punishing. The game also doesn't overstay its welcome, which is rare for action games these days. That said, the story felt pretty predictable to me. I didn't mind it too much because the gameplay was the real star here. If you're into fast-paced, no-nonsense action, Evil West delivers big time.
Damn, like locusts. That hurt.
When I first played Atomic Heart, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's got this eerie BioShock meets Soviet aesthetic that hooked me right away. The world is so unique, retro yet futuristic, and brimming with unsettling robots and mysterious lore. The gameplay is a mix of exploration, combat, and puzzle solving, and it's surprisingly varied. I especially enjoyed the creative weapons and abilities, which made every fight feel dynamic. But I'll be honest, the storytelling is a bit uneven. Some parts feel like they're trying too hard to be cryptic, and it left me scratching my head more than once. Even so, the atmosphere and gameplay more than made up for it. Let me tell you, Kena Bridge of Spirits felt like playing a Disney movie. The visuals are absolutely gorgeous, from lush forests to detailed character animations. But it's not just about looks. The gameplay is solid too. The combat struck a nice balance for me, with a mix of challenging boss fights and exploration. The rot creatures are more than just adorable. They're a clever gameplay mechanic, helping you solve puzzles and assist in combat. If there's one thing I'd nitpick, it's the platforming. Sometimes the controls didn't feel as tight as I'd like, leading to a few frustrating moments. Still, the overall experience is so enchanting that it's easy to forgive those hiccups. Atlas Fallen was such a pleasant surprise for me. The idea of gliding across vast desert landscapes while taking down colossal enemies felt so fresh. The combat is fast-paced and fluid, and I loved how the game encouraged experimentation with different abilities. The world design is another standout. Exploring the sand-covered ruins and uncovering hidden lore was genuinely rewarding. It's not often you get a setting that feels this unique in an action RPG. That said, the story didn't quite grab me as much as I hoped. Some of the characters felt underdeveloped, which made it hard for me to fully connect with the narrative. Still, the gameplay and world building are so strong that it's easy to look past that. I don't think I've ever played a game that stayed with me as much as Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. From the moment I started, I felt like I was stepping into Senua's mind, a place that's as beautiful as it is terrifying. The game's portrayal of mental illness is unlike anything I've experienced before. The way the voices surround you, constantly whispering doubts or offering guidance, is both unsettling and fascinating. I highly recommend playing with headphones. The binaural audio is an absolute game changer. If I had to mention one drawback, it's the lack of variety in gameplay. Outside of combat and some environmental puzzles, the game doesn't offer much else in terms of mechanics. But honestly, it didn't bother me because the narrative and atmosphere were so gripping that I was completely immersed.
You're close!
Bright Memory Infinite is like a roller coaster ride. It's short, intense, and leaves you wanting more. The combination of first-person shooting and melee combat is incredibly fun. It felt so satisfying chaining together attacks with my sword and gun in quick succession. The visuals are stunning for an indie project, and you can tell the developers poured a lot of effort into making the world feel alive. It's a flashy, adrenaline-pumping experience that doesn't waste your time. But here's the thing, it's short, really short. I finished the game in about 4 hours. While it was a blast, I couldn't help but wish there was more to sink my teeth into. Still, for the price and the sheer fun factor, it's a must-play. Banishers' Ghosts of New Eden hit me with its hauntingly beautiful world and gripping story. It's about love, loss, and redemption, and the emotional weight of the story stayed with me long after I put the controller down. The gameplay combines strategic combat with exploration. Switching between the two protagonists, one living, one a spirit, added a unique layer to the mechanics. I also loved how choices shaped the story, giving it a personal touch. My only issue? The combat could feel repetitive at times, especially in the later stages. But honestly, the emotional core of the game and its atmospheric world more than made up for it.
Beast. How did I miss you on my travels through the woods?
Because it did not want you. It wants your sister.
You gave them dog whistles. You sent them to die.
Those with metal would have reached camp, and I'd have used them too. Those who died won't need feeding.
The weak die that the strong may live.
You tricked them.
I tested them. This be the way of it. This be the way of the world.
We have a hidden watcher. The sister.
If you're into dark fairy tales, Bramble the Mountain King is a must-play. This game feels like stepping into a Nordic storybook, but one with a sinister twist. The world is both enchanting and terrifying, and I found myself captivated by its unique charm. The puzzles and platforming were enjoyable, though they never got too complicated. For me, it was the story and the world building that stole the show. Each creature and setting felt like it was pulled straight out of a Scandinavian myth. That said, the controls can feel a bit unresponsive during certain sequences. It's not a deal breaker, but it did cause a few unnecessary deaths. Still, the experience as a whole is so magical that it's easy to forgive. Crime Boss Rockay City is like stepping into a cheesy 90s action movie, and honestly, I had a lot of fun with it. The heist missions are chaotic and unpredictable, which kept me on my toes. And let's not forget the voice cast. It's packed with Hollywood stars, which added to the charm. The gameplay loop revolves around building your criminal empire and executing daring missions. I liked the freedom it gave me to approach heists in different ways. But here's the thing, the AI isn't great. Sometimes enemies felt too easy to outsmart, which took away from the tension. Even so, the game's over-the-top style and addictive gameplay made it worth the ride.
Hang on! Need to reload!
Taste it, you miserable fox!
Motherfucker!
Here we go. She's opening.
The Akatimba! Both photos I need here! They will be here!
Good. Get the dogs to the pin.
Take over! Grenade up!
I love a good Western, and Call of Juarez Gunslinger scratched that itch perfectly. It's got this gritty comic book storytelling vibe where the narrator recounts his tales of revenge, betrayal, and shootouts. What's cool is how the story shifts depending on how the narrator remembers events. The gameplay itself is a blast, literally. The gunplay feels satisfying, and the arcade-style scoring system kept me coming back to see if I could top my best runs. If I had to nitpick, it'd be the length. It's not a very long game, and by the time I got into the groove of things, it was already wrapping up. Still, the mix of style and substance made this one of the most memorable Westerns I've played.
We're gonna be in deep shit when we get back!
The Sinking City is one of those games that pulls you in with its eerie atmosphere and never really lets go. As a private investigator in a city plagued by madness and supernatural phenomena, I was hooked on uncovering the truth behind its mysteries. The open-world design allowed me to explore at my own pace, and the detective mechanics made me feel like I was piecing together a giant, twisted puzzle. It's not a hand-holding experience, and I love that. It really made me think. However, the combat felt clunky at times. It's not terrible, but it's clear the focus was more on the investigation side of things. Despite that, the chilling Lovecraftian vibe more than made up for it.
So the fisherman pursued Albert.
I'll admit, I wasn't sure what to expect from another crab's treasure. But this game surprised me. It's like Dark Souls meets an underwater adventure, and it works way better than you'd think. You play as a crab, scavenging for armor and fighting off enemies in a beautifully crafted underwater world. The humor is spot on, and the gameplay is both challenging and rewarding. I got a real sense of satisfaction from finally beating some of the tougher bosses. That said, the difficulty might be off-putting for some. It's not unfair, but it can get frustrating. Still, if you're up for the challenge, it's an experience you won't forget. Still Wakes the Deep is one of the most tense games I've ever played. The setting, a creaky oil rig during a brutal storm, makes for an incredibly atmospheric horror experience. The sound design especially stood out. Every creak, groan, and howl of the wind had me on edge. What really got me, though, was the storytelling. It's subtle, relying more on the environment and your imagination to piece things together. The result is a slow-burning sense of dread that's hard to shake off. If I had one complaint, it's that the pacing can feel a bit too slow in the middle. But the payoff is worth it, and the game's ability to immerse you in its world is unmatched. I loved the first Ghostrunner, so I had high expectations for the sequel, and it didn't disappoint. Ghostrunner 2 takes everything that was great about the original and cranks it up a notch. The parkour mechanics are smoother, the levels are more dynamic, and the combat is as fast and satisfying as ever. What stood out to me most was the bike sequences. Zipping through cyberpunk landscapes on a futuristic bike was a thrilling change of pace. The visuals are absolutely stunning, and the soundtrack kept my adrenaline pumping the whole way through. The only downside? It can be brutally difficult. There were moments where I had to take a break because I kept dying. But if you're up for a challenge, this game is a masterpiece in its own right.
There's a whole bunch of them ahead. Perhaps you should look for an alternate entrance?
So there you have it. 15 incredible AA games that prove you don't need a massive budget to create something extraordinary. Each of these games brought something unique to the table, from gripping stories to innovative gameplay. Sure, they might not be perfect, but their passion and creativity shine through in ways that rival even the biggest AAA titles. Give them a shot. You might just find your next favorite game. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gaming content. See you in the next one.